Welcome to episode 209 of the Whatnauts review show, where every week we pick a story and we talk about it. It could be a movie, TV series, anime, comic book, audio drama, all kinds of entertainment. We watch it, read it, listen to it, and then we come back here and we talk about it. My name is Melissa Wilkinson, and I am joined as always by Kyle Springer.
Hello, good morning.
Good
How's
morning.
it going?
Going well. How was your weekend?
It's been pretty good so far. Did a whole lot of nothing yesterday. But it's also been, we're still kind of in the midst of a summer game fest. So there's all kinds of game showcases and stuff. And there's a big one that's going to be happening while we're recording the show. So afterwards, I'm going to have to go catch up on the Xbox and Bethesda conference. So, but yeah, that's kind of my weekend. What have you been up to?
I went to see the new Jurassic World movie yesterday.
Oh, how was it?
It was what you'd expect it to be.
Dinosaurs.
Yeah, checked the boxes. Look, there's our old friends again. Our new friends are still here. BD Wong's in it. Great performance.
Oh, nice,
Maybe the highlight of the film, BD Wong.
Great actor, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah, it was a fine time. Jack and I went to see the first Jurassic World years ago, and there's the scene where the dinosaurs are attacking the dining area of the theme park, and you see a man panicked running away holding a margarita in each hand, a cameo by Jimmy Buffett himself, mayor of Margaritaville. Since then, we've always celebrated for the next two. We go to the same Mexican restaurant and we get big margaritas.
That's awesome. That's perfect.
So it's nice to have that to look forward to. It was good to unwind this weekend with like a big silly action movie and a margarita.
Hell yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Sounds
like a good time indeed.
Yeah.
Man, I'm slowly realizing that this summer there's a lot more movies than I expected.
Yeah.
So I might have to. I know I've mentioned looking into my movie theaters version of Movie Pass, their subscription thing, but I think I might actually do it here. So start seeing all the movies that are out this summer.
Yeah, it's a good summer for them.
Indeed.
This week, we are talking about the 2003 HBO miniseries Angels in America, directed by Mike Nichols and written by Tony Kushner, adapted from his play of the same name. I had pitched this as part of a series of Pride Month pitches, and I think it's also Jewish American Heritage Month. This is relevant on multiple fronts.
2 for 1. There you go. Good stuff. I had not heard of this when you pitched it. Not something I was familiar with or had been on my radar. Apparently, not only had it won a bunch of awards when it came out, but it's still winning a bunch of awards when people adapt it and do all that sort of stuff. I think according to the show's Wikipedia page, Andrew Garfield recently played one of the main characters on Broadway and won some awards.
Some award, Kyle. Tony, the big one.
You know, the big old tiger, him, that guy.
Yeah, this, I was familiar with this because this miniseries was sweeping the Golden Globes the same year I was watching for Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. Gotcha. I was deep into Lord of the Rings, and I watched every award show that year to watch it win things, which it did. And I'd also got Angels in America lodged in my head. I was 13. I didn't have HBO. I wasn't super interested in it, but I remembered it as a concept. And then in college, I took a modern drama course. It was a literature course. We were just reading plays as literature. And this is one of the ones in my textbook. And it's I remember that thing. I didn't think I knew it was a play. And I read it and I really admired it. I thought it was very inventive. And then I ordered the DVD set of the HBO miniseries, and I enjoyed it a lot. And I really wanted to have the chance to revisit it and see what you thought of it.
Cool. Yeah, it's an interesting one for sure. You also kind of pitch this one as one with a interesting like narrative structure, or not necessarily narrative structure, but they do some things in there that maybe most stories don't do structurally. I don't know what that means exactly, but I was like, that sounds good. I'll do that one. I have to say, I don't think the narrative structure was all that complicated, at least in the mini-series version. I have not seen or read the play, so I don't know how that it compares to that. But as far as the HBO miniseries goes, it was pretty easy to follow, standard, and not in a bad way, but just like, hey, don't expect like some Inception level like narrative structure. What is going on here?
It does play with reality and fantasy. There are several fantasy sequences. There's at one point a character has a hallucination and encounters another character who's having a dream. And they're like, you're in my hallucination. No, you're in my dream. How are we doing this? And there's visions and prophecies, and there is a lot of double casting. Actors, some of them only play, their primary role, but other ones are playing 3 or 4 different characters. And I thought that was something you would really enjoy.
Yeah, and that was indeed. Yeah. Meryl Streep plays like 3 or 4 characters in here.
Yeah, she plays Hannah Pitt. She plays Ethel Rosenberg. She plays one of the angels at the end, and she also plays that rabbi in episode 1.
Yeah, that I think was kind of the most interesting one to me. Is that she is also that rabbi at the start. I didn't recognize her in that role at all. And most of these like dual roles, I feel like I were like blatant of like, oh, they're playing an angel. Or Jeffrey Wright also playing Mr. Lies. But there's some like side characters, or just like they got one scene where they play someone else, which was really, really interesting. And I didn't necessarily recognize the actors in some of those roles there. So that was fantastic. I enjoyed that a lot, especially after we watched Suspiria.
Yeah.
And you blew my mind that what's her name was 2
Tilda
characters.
Swinton.
Yeah, good God.
3, in fact. She also plays that old mother at the end.
That's right.
It's not quite as shocking as her also being the old man.
But I had no idea with that, and I was mind blown.
I remembered you said that was your highlight of review show last year. It was just learning that movie really contained a second Tilda Swinton. I definitely have to bring something like that back for this year. Now that you have 4 Meryl Streeps.
Indeed. That being said, I feel like this is a mini series that I'm wrestling with still. On one hand, I don't know if I liked it, but on the other hand, this is made really well. Some of the characters, I can't say I necessarily related to them, but some of their interactions and stuff with the other characters, some of the dialogue was fascinating. It's not necessarily fast paced and like that hard hitting dialogue that I like from Primer, for example. But that was a weird comparison there.
I guess I'd call it fast paced and hard hitting in that it is extremely dry and technical and does not let the audience in at all.
Like it won't let you catch up is what I'm referring to. This doesn't have that, but they talk about so much and very quickly just go in so deep on a bunch of different topics that it is hard to keep up in a way. And I liked that. I liked where this show ended up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I like the journey to get there. If that makes sense. Like I feel like I'm wrestling with this show of like what did I actually feel about this? Because I don't know.
Yeah, I had not seen this in 10 years. And when I started it, I'm like, oh, I knew this was a filmed adaptation of a play for and not like they just filmed it on stage. Like it is adapted for screen and just shot like a movie, but it's very obviously adapted from a play. The dialogue feels very theatrical.
Sure, yeah.
It's a play adaptation from 2003. And then I started watching it and I'm like, oh, I really feel that this is a play adaptation from 2003. I was like, I know Kyle's gonna like the double casting, and you're gonna like the appearance of James Cromwell for 2 scenes.
Babe dude.
Babe dude's in it. I knew you would like that. But then it was like, man, I don't. This is one for me. I don't know if Kyle's gonna be super into the rest of this.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I didn't find any of the characters really likable.
I understand.
That were just like you would be likable, but you're just annoying as hell.
Lots of
shut up and calm down a bit, and you'll be good.
Right. Yeah, lots of bad habits, poor life decisions on display in this show. Yeah,
doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad characters, though.
Oh no.
Again, I think this is fantastically made, well shot. I think it is interesting, but yeah, just maybe not for me.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think it is a stellar cast. I think that is the strength of this thing, and it swept so many awards when it came out. I've got the DVD set that on the back says like it won the Golden Globe for like best. It was categorized as like TV movie, like best in that category, best adapted screenplay, and like best for the 4 actors. And like there's like you could have picked anybody from this cast that won an award, but it's like, yep, we're giving the statues, little Golden Globes out to Meryl and Al Pacino and Jeffrey Wright and Mary Louise Parker. Like the performances are what you watch this thing for, what you come back to this for, and like that is what I've remembered it for, is the performances and the some of the unique presentations of scenes. And I want to we later in the show I want to tell you more about some of the stuff the play did that like didn't get translated on screen.
Yes,
the play is what it does with the nature of the stage and of sharing space and of double casting is really fascinating.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds exciting. Brief synopsis for those who may or may not be interested.
Okay.
What's happening?
It is the mid 80s in New York City in the AIDS crisis. And there's a young man named Prior Walter who is diagnosed with AIDS. And as he's sick and he's in the hospital, his boyfriend leaves him because he's bad at dealing with death. He hates medical things. They ick him out. So he leaves and he's distraught. And he has this angelic vision. An angel comes to him in the night and tells him he is a prophet. So he's running around New York City trying to like solve problems. It's the first half of this play. This play was presented in 2 halves: Millennium Approaches and Perestroika. And a lot of sometimes you can see both of them done at once in like one 6-hour night at the theater. But a lot of times people just do Millennium Approaches. I've seen Millennium Approaches live. Have not been lucky enough to see Perestroika live yet. But that theme, Millennium Approaches, it's set in the mid 80s, and that is something that hangs over this narrative, is that so many of these characters have this foreboding of them. They live in this time of this great cultural change, of illness and conflict, and some things are getting better and some things are getting worse, and that big year 2000 is looming in front of them as a date on the calendar, and also this like passage of eras in human history as the sort of biblical shift almost. And the show explores it through like various religions and just the fear that we don't know what's coming next. We don't know how it is we are supposed to live. We don't know if we are approaching an end time or not. So we see Pryor dealing with that, and we follow a young Mormon couple who's moved to New York City. We follow Roy Cohn, a real man in history, as he also suffers from AIDS, and he's in the hospital, and he's haunted by the ghost of Ethel Rosenberg, a woman who he gave the death penalty to.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, and it just kind of follows all of these different people as they are dealing with their daily lives, with the AIDS crisis, with being gay, with accepting that they're gay. And I think it's also interesting to point out that there are a number of characters who are ghosts or angels or stuff like that, that are just in there. And some characters can see, some of them can't, stuff like that. But yeah, it is certainly an interesting one for sure.
Yeah. We watched this on HBO Max. I think when I Googled it, it said it was also on Hulu through something. Consider it. It's a highlight of American theater. If you're not able to get out and see it live, if you're intrigued by the concept, look up the miniseries. If nothing else, you'll get these real stellar performances.
Indeed. Well, with that, I think this is a good time to take a break for housekeeping. And when we come back, we will dive into spoilers and discuss it a little bit more in depth. So yeah, we will be right back. We put a lot of hard work into the shows that we make, and yes, we make multiple different shows here at the Whatnauts, and we'd love it if you check them all out. You can find out more information on our website at thewhatnauts.com, as well as your favorite podcasting platform of choice. When you type in the Whatnauts, all of our shows will pop up right there. Just don't forget to give us a nice rating and review if you like the shows. If you want to support what we do here at The Whatnauts, patreon.com/The Whatnauts is the best place to do that. You can support us for as little as $1 a month. You can get all kinds of exclusive content at the $3 tier. You can also get a shout out and a thank you on all of our shows at the $5 tier. You can support us on Twitch by subscribing to our channel at twitch.tv/The Whatnauts. And we would love to have you all join us for our live streams and talk with us in the chat. And lastly, we have merch. If you'd like to grab yourself a shirt or a sweatshirt or a mug or something else, go to thewhatnauts.com/store to pick up some merch today. And we are back. A big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much. It means a ton. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Cool things that we've been up to here at the Whatnauts. Man, on the Captain's Log this past week, we had a lot of fun. We are briefly moving our recording dates of the Captain's Log to Thursday for the remainder of the summer. So for the next 3 months, we will be recording those on Thursdays. So just keep that in mind. That's the Captain's Log. For crossplay, like I mentioned at the start, we're right in the middle of Summer Game Fest, so there's a whole bunch of video games being announced and new trailers and stuff like that. If you are interested in that stuff, go check out Crossplay, our video game podcast. And then, of course, Miss Marvel just got started, so we are doing our reactions to Miss Marvel each week as it comes out on the Whatnauts Reactor Core. So yeah, get excited for all of this stuff. There's so much stuff happening right now. So, but there you go. That is our housekeeping for now. Let's see. I still have not updated my whatchamacallit thing here, so I need to do the spoiler alert manually. We're about to get into spoilers, so here we go. Bam. There we are. Here we are. So I have something that I want to start out with in this here. I want to talk about the opening credits song.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it's this instrumental So just the that whole sequence, right? Very specifically, the last like 2 seconds of it is what I want to talk about, because the song is peaceful. I don't want to say it's light, because it still feels like it has like a weight to it, but in a way that is like calming and peaceful. And the show is Angels in America. It sounds nice, like, oh, this is pleasant, something that your mom would enjoy. And then the last two, so it is going across America through the clouds. You see different landmarks. It ends up in New York at in Central Park at a certain fountain, and there is I forget who
it's the angel Bethesda.
Bethesda. There you go. Yeah, it's a statue of Bethesda, and the last 2 seconds focuses in on the face of Bethesda, this statue, and it moves. It comes to life and like looks right at you.
Yes.
And the song in the last 2 seconds shifts from what I described as like that lightweight, peaceful thing to this dark and foreboding note at the end there. And I found that like mysterious, of like, ooh, like we're expecting something to happen in this show that is like, there's this like impending doom on top of them all. And we both did get that and did not in the way that I was expecting. Which I guess I don't know exactly what I was expecting, but not in a way that I was maybe predicting. I don't know. But what did you think of that opening sequence, that opening song?
First off, I love that one of the landmarks they pass by is the St. Louis Arch. I love to see myself represented on screen.
There you go.
And the final shot of the angel is really thematically tied to the story as a whole, where angels are typically perceived, in this touched by an angel vibe. You expect beautiful, soft, glowing Roma Downey to come down and like give you advice on how to live your life and like pat you on the shoulder.
On their head there. Yeah.
And there's a little bit of that, but for the most part, angels are terrifying. There's like a cosmic horror to an angel, which is, I believe, biblically true. Some angels are described as being like, he has 15 wings and 99 eyes and he's on fire.
Well, there might be some stuff describing them in the book of Revelations, but in the Old and New Testament, they never really like physically describe them. But every time they appear to a human, the first thing they have to say is, "Don't be scared." Like, hey, like, don't be terrified, because everyone is just cowering in fear. And I always found that fascinating, that everyone thinks of them as these like angelic beings playing the lyre and the lute, and they have beautiful wings, and they're right. And it's just like, no, they're horrifying.
Right.
Like, these things, like, you'll be scared to death. Like,
it's just Emma Thompson crashing through your ceiling, giving you a boner and yelling at you. That's what these angels are. Yeah, which so to have this angel statue open its eyes and stare at you, and not like in a cheeky wink sort of Hallmark movie sort of way, but like
a horror movie kind of
way. It feels goosebumpsy in a very mature manner. And then the music turns dark. These are frightening. The angels are frightening, and they are also sensual and erotic. Like the angel comes to Pryor, a gay man, and the angels this female form of Emma Thompson, but still like the angel, like they take in your soul and your spirit and your full body. You are a full being, every part of you. And they are interacting with you on a physical level as well as a spiritual level. So that's how Pryor knows he's about to get a vision, is when he gets a boner. He's on all this medication. Like, this isn't something that's like happening to him very much in his everyday life. But the angel can get him up. And he's like, great. I didn't ask for this. I don't. And they have like this weird floating, flaming spiritual sex.
They sure do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure. But I wanted to mention it because I do think the song kind of mirrors a number of themes in the show, especially that like forebodingness. And then, like you said, part one of this show is entitled Millennium Approaching. And it is this kind of foreboding nature of like, we don't know what's next. We don't know what's happening. Things seem to be getting worse in life in America. And by the year 2000, God, who knows if we'll even still be here, right? Here we are in 2022. But still, like it like there's this foreboding nature of the millennium that is approaching. Though at the same time, a number of the characters are kind of hopeful for what the millennium will bring, because they don't know. It's not necessarily a bad thing, and so they feel like they kind of have to hope that something better is on the horizon. And I liked that, and I liked where that theme kind of went by the end of the mini series here. To skip ahead briefly to the end, when Pryor is like in this like I guess you could call it heaven, this like like this end times angelic vision mirroring the Last Supper and all of the like this stuff. There's some beautiful shots in that are stunning, and it is this kind of, on one hand, I want to say hopeful. It's a hopeful it's a hopeful ending to the play, but it's also a stern one too. Because Pryor's character is now like on a mission to go find God and like hold him accountable for abandoning everyone and all, like which is also like a darker turn to the thing there. Like it is a serious note of like, oh, like he's about to go like be like, God, what the fuck? Like,
he tells all this court of angels who the God has left them, and it's just this council of angels who are trying to run things on their own. And Pryor goes to them and he's like, sue him, find God and sue him. He owes you something. And the play does end on this. I think sternness is a good word for it. He's got this determination of, I'm not backing down, I'm not giving in. Like the angels give him this opportunity to like to die, to leave his bodily form, to live as a prophet in heaven, to leave the mortal coil behind. And he's like, no, he wants to be alive. And I know you guys don't understand it. Like you think I'm just stuck in the habit of being alive and I want to keep doing it. But like, I am addicted to life.
Alive. Yeah.
Right. I love how he says, I am addicted to being alive. I will pursue this no matter what. And that is what he's doing. He's got this cold flintiness to him where he's like, no, I'm not leaving. I'm not going to be this like the cosmic subject to your games. I just want to be a living man and like go to the park and eat a sandwich with my friends.
Right. Which then the series does really end on them back in that park by that fountain, by that statue of Bethesda. And again, they are kind of, I think by this time it's been a time jump. I think they're past the millennium at that point.
No, I think it's like in the early 90s, like maybe 93.
So but it's four of them still sitting there, just kind of talking, explaining some things that happened and stuff like that. And that scene is a lot more hopeful. Like
Yes.
there is this like, well, that was the end of our adventure. And you know what? We learned some things. And here's some things that happened along the
Sure.
way. Here's the friends that we made. It is this more like it's not a like a wrap up review of like here's everything that happened, but it's
right.
it is that like there's a more hopeful twinge to that scene there. They seem happy. Is what it is.
The real angels in America are the friends you make along the way.
There you go. Yep.
But you're right. It is Pryor and Lewis and Belize and Hannah who meet together to celebrate Pryor's birthday. And it's a celebration of him continuing to live with AIDS, which is not a narrative you hear a lot about. When that's introduced in a story, it often ends in death. It doesn't end with, and this man's been alive for 6 or 7 years and he's going to keep going. He's managing it.
Yeah.
So I like that. But it is hopeful in that Pryor and Lewis are able to be friends. That he randomly ran into Hannah and she like took him to the hospital as like a good Samaritan, and they're still friends years later. Lewis and Belize aren't arguing that badly. The fact that these social bonds can continue, can weather the storm, and that is one of the greatest things you have to lose in this approaching millennium, in this shift, in this conflict, is the loss of loved ones, not just from death, but from falling out. The fact that over the years, he's not fallen out with any of these people, I think is the hopeful note of it.
I think on top of that, it's interesting to see because the characters that we meet end up kind of intertwining without the other characters necessarily knowing right away. And yeah, there are sexual encounters between them all. And when stuff like that tends to get out and relate, like people end up not necessarily keeping in touch with their exes or keeping in touch with like, well, it was like a summer fling while I was trying to cope with something that my boyfriend had to deal with, right? Like usually those relationships don't continue. And by the end of this, they've kind of managed to all reconcile and be okay with it and be like, hey, like there were some bumps along the way, but we all know each other. We're all good. We're fine with the way things are. And yeah, I think that is like another like hopeful layer. I'm a big believer of like, hey, relationships don't have to end. Well, sure, relationships don't have to end poorly, but like you don't have to like completely cut someone off just because they're like you can still be friends with them. You just know that, hey, like a more romantic or sexual relationship might not work, or like, hey, like a more like in-depth friendship. That's a weird way to put that, but just like
I understand,
right? Like, hey, maybe we're on like the Christmas card level. We'll catch up if we see each other in public, but really beyond that, like you're not going to be here at the backyard barbecues on most, right? Like you can sometimes still be that, and I think a lot of people nowadays are like, well, if we're done, then that's it. Like never talking to you again, and sometimes that is what you need to do, right? Let's be clear, or that is just what happens. But it's possible to still be friends, and I think that's something you don't really see in a lot of media.
Yeah, I do like that a lot. And I like that Pryor and Belize had something going on in the past, and it's not sure to what. They had a sexual relationship at least, and like Lewis accuses him of Belize, you hate me because Pryor left you for me, and Belize is like, I love Pryor, but I was never in love with Pryor, and I have a boyfriend. You've just never asked me about him. He's not in the story, but I have one.
Yeah.
And I think that final scene, it's like Pryor's birthday and it's in January, and it's freezing. There's snow on the ground. There's nobody else around but those four, which could be nice, but it also seems like uncomfortable. I like that scene in a social sense, but I'm looking at it and it's like I don't want to sit on a cold stone bench in New York City in January. And they're just drinking coffee
around.
and eat.
Yeah.
Right. They're all sharing like a sandwich or something. Like it's not high living. It's not anything fancy. It's not like a picturesque spring day where they have like a full picnic spread out in front of them. No, it's just like something wrapped in paper on a cold stone bench in January. And that is worth living for. You don't have to be attaining the highest thing possible for you to still be addicted to life. Life in its simplest form is addictive enough.
Yeah, indeed. So let me ask you this. It's a bit of a simple question, but like who in this story did you connect with the most? Who did you like the most?
I don't know if I connect with anybody. I don't know if I point at anybody and say, yes, I felt like that. I feel like I am in your shoes.
Or
I
just
feel
like
the way.
Whose story did you enjoy the most?
Oh, gosh. I think the standout character might be Belize. And I didn't know. Like, I learned a little bit about this in college, but today I went through the Wikipedia articles on this miniseries and on the original play. I didn't know Jeffrey Wright was in the original Broadway cast and that he won a Tony for this. Yeah. So like, I think that's why his is one of the strongest performances, is that it does feel so naturalistic and so lived in because he did this thing on stage for who knows how long. He's won like multiple awards for playing the same role.
Okay, so he was playing the same character in both. It's not like he played Pryor in this one and then Mr. Lies and that one.
So some people have jumped around. I think I saw that like the actor who plays Lewis played Roy Cohn in like an early like pre-stage, before the staging of the play, like a workshop at NYU once.
Gotcha.
Sometimes roles are traded, but no, I think he was Belize the whole time.
Interesting. Yeah, I thought, I mean, Jeffrey Wright, they're all fantastic
actors,
star-studded cast, but I liked Jeffrey Wright's characters a lot. I really liked Mr. Lies.
Yeah.
I think just in terms of the kind of stories that I'm into, I think Mr. Lies is a character that fits more into the stuff that I like. So I really enjoyed whenever he was on screen. It felt more like Twin Peaks and like that kind of thing of just like, what is going on here? And his whole, it's not his adventure. What was her name? The wife's name? Harper. Her kind of adventure is this kind of Twin Peaksian kind of adventure. She is dealing with the fact that she's kind of bored and lonely at home. She's kind of fallen into taking Valium to cope with the fact that maybe her husband doesn't really love her. And then, you mentioned this like shared hallucination / dream state thing in which Pryor tells her like, hey, your husband is gay, and she's just like, no. No, that's not true, we're married. And she goes back, and that's kind of a revelation for her, is that that makes sense actually, that he might be dealing with some of that stuff. And so it's then her like figuring out how to deal with that and how to cope with that. But man, there's one scene when they're in the theater. I don't remember what theater exactly, but she like walks out on stage with this big rock as she's putting the like rock prop down. I got Major Log Lady vibes from that. And just with like the mannequins coming to life and like the weird sequences of like Mr. Lies playing the oboe in Antarctica, and then like it switches to New York and he's sitting there with something else on a trash can instead. Like it's just like there's weird things happening here, and I like these vibes. Good stuff.
Yeah. You've landed on one of the things that most excited me when I read this play is the scene where Joe's mother, Hannah, has come to New York City to sort of take to watch over her son, who has confessed to her that he's gay, and her daughter-in-law, who is completely zonked out on Valium. Harper has few moments of 100% clarity and lucidity. And Hannah is volunteering at the Mormon Visitor Center, where they've got this. It's such a weird setup. They have this like mannequin,
not a theater, right?
It's like a museum display of like, here are these mannequins of like the original Mormon settlers traveling across the country to get to Salt Lake City. But they're mannequins, but there's a theater in front of them. Like, you're supposed to just sit there and like look at the stationary mannequins.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe there's some animatronic function to them, and you like listen to an audio reel or something. It's a weird setup. And Harper's sitting there in the theater looking at this Mormon dad mannequin. And she's like, it looks just like Joe. And it is a mannequin that
does look just like him.
Right. They just made a mannequin that looks like Patrick Wilson. But on stage, that is the actor who is playing Joe, who is dressed up as the Mormon settler sitting up in his covered wagon. And then I think in this miniseries, that's then followed by a scene that's between Joe and Lewis. On stage, you've got Harper and Hannah there in the visitor center looking at the actor playing Joe playing the mannequin dad. And then Lewis comes in and starts talking to the mannequin like it is Joe. And then that actor is reacting as Joe to Lewis, just in the same physical space where Harper's looking at him like he's just a mannequin. It's a
trip. It's she's just like, I am tripping balls.
It's one of the most remarkable things I've ever read. It's in the second half of the play. Like, I've never gotten to see that performed live. It's one of my life's dreams. I just want to see this thing where you're like, oh, symbolically, like the mannequin represents his character, so that actor's there. And then another actor comes in and treats that actor like he is his original character, and he's doing both of these things at once. How inventive. I love the format breaking stuff like that. Cool. I don't think it would have carried on screen as well as it does on stage, but I wish I could have seen that instead of just a mannequin that looks very much like Patrick Wilson.
Yeah, indeed. Belize himself not as interested in, since it was not as like Twin Peaksian, right? But still fantastic performance by Jeffrey Wright. Of course, Al Pacino is Al Pacino. Fantastic.
I was also reading that the before this play would even been produced, one of the producers of this miniseries had read it and thought, I want to film this someday. And it goes through the Broadway production. And then I think in like 1993, while it's on stage, Al Pacino agrees, I want to play Roy Cohn in a filmed version of this. And then it doesn't get off the ground till 10 years later. So I think that's another factor that really adds to his performance, is that he's known for a decade that he wants to play this.
Interesting. It was interesting for me this week because as I mentioned on the Whatnauts Captain's Log, one of our podcasts that we do, that I got a double dose of Pacino this week, and I watched Dog Day Afternoon for the first time, which, spoilers for that movie, if you haven't
the dog dies.
Well, there is no dog in that one, so skip ahead like a minute or two. I'll keep it real short here. But the twist of that movie is that Pacino's character is robbing the bank so that he can get money for his for his wife's sex change. He has a gay or he's bisexual because he's married with kids, but also has another relationship with this guy who wants to have a sex change. And that is like kind of the big twist of the movie. And so, yeah, it was just interesting to see him in a role where he's a lot younger and is this like bisexual character, just not just not, he's a disaster guy, right? And then to see him in this, where he's now much older, he has AIDS, he's a lawyer. It just, there's like, in my mind, there was this weird sense of continuity.
Oh, yeah. I understand that. Wow.
And yeah, it was just, it was a little bit strange, but it was a fantastic performance by Al Pacino.
He's got some terrific monologues, and I love that at the beginning of Millennium Approaches, he's this real top-notch lawyer, and he's talking to people constantly. He's got this like multi-line phone, and he's always punching buttons and saying, yes, hold. And he's like calling his secretary, like, I got these colleagues coming into town. They want Broadway tickets. What can you get them? Cats? No, cats. It's cats. We'll love it. It's saying cats. And he's juggling all these things. Well, like, Joe just sits there very politely, like waiting for him to finish. And he mentions, like, I wish I was an octopus. I wish I had 8 arms so that he could juggle all these phones, which is such a weird, comical, whimsical thing for this man. This like very serious, judgmental man to be thinking of. And that's his final words, I think, or among his final words when he dies at the end of Perestroika is, if I come back, I want to come back as an octopus.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe he's also just really into hentai. So who knows?
Don't know if it existed back then. Well, it did. I don't know how much I was in.
Not necessarily in America.
Hentai in America.
Angels in America.
Tentacles in America.
Hentai in America, yeah.
I love that. I love that he's not envisioning a life where he wants to keep doing this. He's not imagining, what if fewer people called me?
Octopus.
Right. What if I had less business to do? He's like, no, I want to do the same amount of business, if not more, and be better equipped to it. Like, I just want more art.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Al Pacino's character, as much as his performance is great, he's also a difficult character to really get into, right? Like, he is this very judgmental, foul-mouthed character who is racist, misogynist, but also gay. And, like, it's a weird combination, kind of, with how polarized America has become today.
And he's
go ahead.
He's got a different relationship with his sexuality than the other characters do. Like, you've got like Pryor and Belize, who are very proud, out gay men. Lewis, who's also out, but is like a little bit more secretive about it around his family, you know, like the show starts with he has to go to a funeral for a grandma, and Pryor's like, you always, like, you're not Lewis around your family, you're Lou around your family. You're trying to act more traditionally masculine around your family. And then you've got Joe, who's knows that he is gay, but is like buried that very, very deeply inside himself. He's got this Mormon shame about him where he's like, I know this, but I have to do everything in my behavior to not be that. I have to act the absolute opposite of any way that I do want to act. And then you have Roy, who gives this very fascinating speech about, like, do I have sex with other men? Oh, yes, all the time. But I wouldn't call myself a homosexual, because when you think of a homosexual person today, it is somebody who is struggling, who can't get the respect that they deserve. And he's like, I get the respect I deserve. I have clout. Other people you're thinking of, they don't have clout. So he's in this other strange headspace that no other character has.
He really is. He almost thinks of it more as business.
Yeah.
Right? Which is a thing that I've seen in a couple different, like, movies or TV shows, like for example, Mr. Robot. I'm blanking on the character's name. The guy from Evil Corp that ends up.
Tyrell!
Yeah.
Is it Tyrell when he has to go have sex with that receptionist, that male receptionist,
yes,
like purely to get to secrets?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Like there is like I've seen characters do stuff like that in different. Who knows if it happens in real life? Because I don't know. But that is an interesting thing to me. The view of sexuality in the use of business. And like how does that play a part? And for some people, yeah, it is just there. Like there is this acceptance of maybe I need to sleep with a guy instead to seal the deal on this relationship, or to get the corporate secrets to do X, Y, and Z, or to further some kind of business deal and relationship.
Yeah.
And like that was interesting to me too, to just see him be like, yeah, like I use my sexuality as a form of power, as a which can be a good thing, a bad thing. It can do all sorts of stuff. And yeah, he does get the respect he deserves in the business world. It also makes him a shitty person.
Yeah.
And it's just like I couldn't get into that. It was just like, right. I don't want to be around him. Like I just when he's on screen, as good as the performance is, I'm just like I don't want to be here.
I understand. This is a story that's full of really interesting, multifaceted characters and really outstanding performances of very unpleasant people.
Yes.
I get it. You brought up an interesting angle with the connection between sexuality and business transactions, where after Lewis finds out that Joe works for Roy Cohn and that Roy Cohn is in the hospital for AIDS, he's had sex with men, you presume. He immediately jumps to the conclusion that, Joe has had sex with Roy. Which isn't true. And I don't think that's not an angle those two characters really talk about with each other, is Roy and Joe, both as gay men in this world. No, they do have a very professional business mentor-mentee relationship, and Lewis just completely presumes it's something else.
Yeah. It's another like bump in the road, because especially in the political situation that's happening at the time, for someone like Lewis, who's a lawyer, like these are big things, right? To someone who identifies as gay, who is a like Jewish man who's a lawyer, like he sees Roy Cohen as like the antithesis of everything he stands for, or what a similar identity should be or should represent. And here's this very powerful man who's doing more harm than good for the people that identify similarly. And so he has this like state of shock.
Yeah.
Just like how can you even be around him? Like this vile person. And then just starts to get accusatory and stuff, like, well, you're his butt boy and all this stuff and blah 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 blah. Yeah. And it goes to show that Lewis as a character is also very judgmental.
Yes.
Not only is he struggling to cope with Pryor's like medical situations, but also just when he sees someone he like really cannot stand, right? Like when he knows that Roy Cohen is now two people separated from him, he freaks out. And granted, maybe rightly so, but he's still like he goes to an extent that is like, wow, you have no idea how to cope with this stuff, do you?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Lewis is fascinating. I do like that his angle is that I think believes or prior somebody else accuses him of this, is that he's all like big philosophical political ideas. That's all he wants to talk about. He wants to yell about them and argue about them and complain about them and be self-righteous about them.
Yeah.
And he's not as good at looking at people as just individual people and not like symbols of larger societal things.
Yeah. He seems like on a smaller scale, like with the stuff that actually matter to most people, he doesn't know what he wants is the thing. He's very undecisive in that way. And I think that just mixed with the emotional freakouts, I was just like, okay, I've had enough of this guy. Like,
I understand. Yeah, at least this is a narrative where the characters you might find irritating, other characters find them irritating and call them out on it.
Yeah, but then like it's almost every character though that is irritating in their own way.
I think this is why I think Belize is the most likable out of all the characters. Yeah. He seems the most like you got a good heart on him, and he's also kind of jaded, but not necessarily bitter about everything. He seems very wise. He seems a lot more calm than many other characters. Jeffrey Wright plays him with he feels very regal. Feels like when Belize is talking to you, you need to listen to Belize because Belize knows what's happening.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Man. And then
speaking of Lewis's freakouts, when he leaves Pryor in the hospital and he goes to Central Park to just have sex with some random man, the man he has sex with is the actor playing Pryor, who is disguised with like a hat and a beard and shadowy lighting, like, which is also from the play.
Mustache.
Right. I looked in Wikipedia and the credits, he's labeled as Leatherman. Leatherman, all one word.
There you go. Yeah, that stuff like that is interesting. All those multiple roles, like we mentioned at the start there. God, I'm trying to think. Again, I'm terrible with names here. Let me see. Miniseries. Patrick Wilson's character Joe.
Yeah,
Joe Pitt. He's also he's maybe the one that I can relate to the most because I grew up religious. I'm was not a Mormon. But I've seen and known people like him, where they are gay. Sometimes they even know it. Like they know, like, hey, I'm attracted to men and only men. But then just do their best to kind of just rid themselves of that, or accept it and then just not act on it, because again this show kind of goes to extremes with a lot of the characterizations, where he there's one heated moment that he has with his wife where he really gets to the root of what he's trying to do with himself. That he is really just trying to dig out everything that he can, to the point where he is a shell. Like he hates himself. Like he is miserable. And it's kind of a shocking moment with how real he's being there, because I think that's maybe his character flaw, is that he's not he is not cannot speak. He can't be truthful with himself,
Yeah.
or with his wife, or with his friends. He's very, very secretive.
Or he knows the truth, but he does not live the truth.
Does not accept it. Yeah.
Yes.
And he like, that is what he's dealing with, and that's what drives him to be so unlikable, is that he doesn't tell everyone everything, but then once he does, or if he does, they very quickly realize that, oh, like, the way you're dealing with this is probably not good. It's just, yeah, it was another thing where I was just like, I cannot stand this character, just because he's causing all of his own problems, and everyone can see that.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's the only one that just won't accept it.
You do kind of feel for him and his struggle. I think it is a very empathetic moment where he says, yes, I know that I am gay, but I'm trying to do everything possible to bury that, to dig that out of myself, to live correctly. I behave correctly. Yeah. But then he becomes this, and when he does leave his wife for Lewis, he is much happier. And you kind of like to see that, to see how his life changes when he does admit, I do want to be with another man. Here I am. I'm doing it. Like, he's smiling. His character has changed, but he's gone from being so self-denying to being weirdly selfish, where like he's spent so much of his life fighting and denying and trying to be good that he feels like, it seems like he feels like that buys him a blank check for the rest of his life. Like, with every other conflict he has with people, his argument's like, well, I'm trying to be good. Like, when he hits Lewis, he's like, I've never done this before. I've never hit anybody before. It's less apologetic and more of like, can't be mad at me if this is like the only time I've done it. It's not like I habitually do this.
Yeah, and it's just like, that's not the thing to say here.
And like, and he doesn't get the happy ending that the other characters get. Like, we get that lovely epilogue with Pryor and Lewis and Belize and Hannah, of all characters. And then we get Harper flying across the country on the plane. She gets that beautiful final scene. Roy just dies. And then Joe is just sort of left with this sad sack existence where you don't know what he turns his life into now that like Lewis has left him and Harper has left him. And Harper leaves him in this very harsh way where like he tries to go back to her and like they have this emotionless sex. They have the least sexy sex scene I have ever seen. It is mechanical. He is an animatronic in a museum. And then she like, and she's like, you always have your eyes closed. Are you thinking about other men when you do this? And he doesn't answer her. And then he like goes to the other room, like, I'm going to get dressed. I'm going to go for a walk, which is what he always does. And Harper steps out like completely nude. And she's like, look at me, Joe. What do you see? And he's like, nothing. And she's like, okay, nothing. Like that is it. She's closed the book. Like he feels like she had a sense that he was not sexually attracted to her at all. But the fact that he looks at her and really like doesn't see like, I see my friend. I see this woman I made a commitment to,
or
you know,
as he called her a few times in there, buddy.
Right. Your husband does not love you if his pet name for you is Buddy. And like when he kisses her, he's like, buddy kiss. And then they like have this tight closed mouth kiss that like, it isn't a kiss. It is a sub designation of kiss labeled buddy kiss. It is kiss ostensibly
for your friend.
Right.
For your
not
buddy.
Romantic, not sexual at all. Buddy kiss.
Mormon approved.
And so she leaves him very harshly where she's like, I am taking your credit card. You can see where I'm at. You'll see the charges, but she's like, I won't call you again. I'm not seeing you again. Yeah, you imagine they'll have to communicate at some point in the future to officially divorce each other, but she's absolutely closed the door on him. And then his mom is still there. It seems like perhaps his mom may learn to be more accepting of his homosexuality, but that's the question of whether he is going to, how is he going to live now? Is he going to find a new boyfriend? He's lost so many relationships in his life. He's lost his wife, this boyfriend. He lost Roy, his professional mentor. What is his sexual and personal and professional life going to be from now on? We don't know. We don't get any kind of epilogue with Joe.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like each of the characters and where they ended up is also kind of not metaphorical, but maps onto just how different people reacted to the AIDS crisis and where it left them, right? Sometimes it ruined people and they lost their coworkers, they lost their friends, their family, like all of that stuff. Some people got sick and died. Some people kind of learned to live with it. Some people learned to struggle through it. Be accepting, be angry, right? Like there's all sorts of stuff, and I think they all end up in different spots. And I did like that it's not a happy ending in the sense that, and they all lived happily ever after, right? and they beat the government down and no more AIDS because Magic Johnson found a cure or who knows what, right?
That's why his name is Magic.
But like I said, there is that kind of hopeful air to some of the show where it's like, hey, but you know what? Despite all of these bad things, like there is some goodness still out there. The angels in America are the friends you made along the way. Right.
I agree. There are elements of goodness in people. Like Hannah is such a severe, dry person. It makes sense that she's from out in Salt Lake City, that she's from the desert. She's dry as the desert. But when Pryor collapses in front of him, she's still like, I will take you to the hospital. Like that's what a good God-fearing person does. And like Joe, for as much of a disaster as he is to anybody in his personal life, he's still a fairly polite man. Like you imagine if you were waiting in line next to him at one of these New York City hot dog carts where he goes to eat 3 hot dogs to eat for lunch. Forgot about the scene where Patrick Wilson eats 3 hot dogs. It was very important to me. Like if you were just standing in line next to him, he would be nice to you. Like he'd ask you how your day was going.
Yeah.
Like he's good at niceties and bad at goodness, perhaps. Which is also something I really like that Lewis says to Pryor.
I have one thing to add on the hot dog scene really fast. It also looks like he was eating them plain. Like it looked like he had no condiments on it. Just
exactly dry 3 dry hot dogs
in a bun.
Wiener and bun.
They make the obvious joke in that, like, enjoy your wiener, right?
Yes.
But God, just like, who eats a hot dog plain? Like, he is the most plain. Like, Joe is the most plain, boring character that of course he would eat a hot dog plain.
Right. No mustard. We don't believe in it.
No ketchup.
Relish.
God.
Celery salt, anything. But when Lewis goes back to Pryor in the final episode, and he's not trying to come back, trying to reconcile. And he says, it's not that I don't love you. I'm just bad at loving you. If I didn't love you, I'd be let off the hook. But no, because I have loved you and I did a poor job of it, I'm more on the hook than I've ever been. He's like, I want to make this up to you. And I really like that distinction of there's love, there's indifference, and then there's just a poor job at love.
Yeah. Wild stuff. So I want to talk a little bit about the ending. Especially with Pryor and what happens to him and all of that stuff. Because like I said, there is some beautiful cinematography in there. Man, there's that one scene after he storms out from the like table of all the angels, and he's trying to get back to his room in the hospital, but his like hospital bed is in the middle of this pool in the thing. When he like is first wading into that pool, that scene is gorgeous. Beautiful. And then he gets a little bit closer, and as he's like more like further in, they do a shot that is, it would have been nice, but the like CGI in the background where they're like implanting some like buildings in the back, I was like, well, okay, that kind of ruined. I'm sure it was fantastic at the time, but it was just like, oh, that scene doesn't hold up. I wish it did, because the one just before it was gorgeous.
You know, this is a story that is, they just did that production in 2017 that won Andrew I didn't know Andrew Garfield had a Tony. I don't know why we're not talking about that more.
There you go.
But I think this is a story that will continue to have relevance, and maybe we'll see another filmed version of it in the future that could have definer digital effects. I don't know. I kind of like to see these, like, it's TV effects, but it's HBO. It's like the highest quality TV CGI that was possible in 2003. Well,
it's not even like TV CGI, because it is HBO. Like, this is movie quality.
Yeah, like, it's not TV, it's HBO.
Right, yeah. But like it just, I'm sure at the time it was fantastic and was just like, whoa, this looks so real. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Right? But then just to compare to what we're used to today, was just like, oh, they that could use some work. Cool. Okay.
Yeah. The scene where the he's just sitting there having a doctor's appointment. He's like sitting on the table with like the paper roll on it while Emma Thompson fills out forms. And then she starts speaking in like Hebrew to him suddenly. I love the shock and horror of that scene. Like, it's not magical in a fun way, it's magical in a scary way. And then the like book, like the ground crumbles and the book rises up on a pillar and it opens and there's like flaming Hebrew characters.
Yeah.
It looks hokey, but I don't know. It works for me. I like buy into it. I think maybe it's because I was aware of this thing in 2003. I fully accept the fact that it looks like 2003.
Yeah. Yeah. That stuff I wasn't as upset about, because I was like, okay, this is like of the times. But it was like, to me, it was like the juxtaposition of that one, just like the color of that water was so blue. It was so saturated. It was very just like a metaphorical, symbolic, like otherworldly kind of scene and set that they were in. I don't like it. Just wherever they shot that, gorgeous.
I think they went to Italy to shoot it. It is beautiful. It's like this classic architecture that's fallen into ruin, but it doesn't feel dystopian. It doesn't feel sad. I think there is sort of this romantic decay to the whole thing. And like, you have no clear sense of like place or space where he is. He's wandering from like fountain to garden to like crumbling arch, and you don't know like, where are you? Where are you trying to get to? It's very dreamlike. And then I like that he finds the Council of Angels. And it's not clear that it's cold here otherwise, but they're all bundled up in like very normal human coats.
Yeah. But what another thing that was really interesting to me is kind of I'm not sure if absurdity is the right word here, but the ending of this show, when Pryor is like, yeah, well, we need to hold God accountable. Let's sue him.
Yeah.
Let's sue the bastard. Right. And he goes on this kind of monologue about like holding God accountable, and then storms out of there. That's very reminiscent of the comic Preacher. Like it's almost the exact same thing. Except Preacher starts with that. Like, the premise is God is gone. No one knows where he went. And basically, a preacher, a vampire, and an assassin go on a mission to find God.
Walk into a bar.
Right? Yeah. And they go on a mission to find God and hold him accountable. To basically find him and ask, "What the hell, dude?" Right?
Yeah.
Like that is the so like this one ends how that one starts. And it was just like this is weird. Like I kind of like the absurdity of where this one went. Like it's not like it is, but it is not fantastical. If that makes sense. But
like you're in this
just so
otherworldly.
Different.
You've got this otherworldly setting with this council of angels, and every angel's like a continent. Like there's Dimitonson, the angel of America, and there's Angel Oceanica and Angel Australiana.
Yeah.
But like they're in front of a desk with they're in like these beautiful ruins with just like a pile of papers, and they're all wearing just like stuff from the Burlington Coat Factory.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting, like especially compared to the really serious dramatic performances in the rest of this show. To have it almost end on this like, and I'm gonna storm off and find God and sue him. Is just like, wait, what? That being said, though, the performances of the angels are also very staged like performances. They are this over the top dramatic. It is I am the angel. Right.
Emma Thompson as the angel is great. I do love how the angel is written speaking in this like really unnatural manner where when she proclaims herself, it is I am the angel. And she she's just so outside of any human experience. She's entirely bluster and grandeur and howling winds. And then Pryor wrestles her and she's like, I have torn a muscle in my thigh. Like she can say a normal sentence, but it's not going to sound normal.
Right. Yeah. It's so weird, that mix, because then on top of that, you also have ghosts. You have dead people who are in this and arguing and bickering about the family histories and stuff like that. I think the reactions, like seeing Pryor's reactions to some of these things were ridiculous. Him just mouth agape, just
it is like
his mouth maybe just wide open.
It is maybe a little stagey. But I do like the way he's just exasperated, really almost more than he is terrified. Like whenever he wakes up from one of these angelic visions, he's just like, "What?" Like he's mad.
What? Why? Who did? What? When?
And I love when in like the second half of the story when he like is living as a prophet and he's got this like black coat with a hood. He looks like a Sith. Yeah. He's hobbling around New York City on his cane.
Like, right there with his like mean look.
Sulking around, just yelling, going to Joe's office to yell at him.
That's so funny. Yeah, God. And it's like, for, if nothing else, Angels in America is interesting. With all of its components, its characters, the performances, it goes to all sorts of places. But yeah, like I said, I couldn't really get into some of the characters or most of them. Yeah. I just, it was hard to relate to most of them, or just like find some way that I could be like okay with watching a scene with them, if that makes sense. I guess that sounds harsh.
I understand.
But like it was just like I just, they're all unlikable. But I liked where it ended up. I liked how, despite that like sinister twinge of the opening theme song, there is like the show finished on this like more hopeful note.
Yeah, I really like the final scenes in the show with Harper flying across the country talking about how she sees souls rising up from the earth and they are holding on to each other and forming a patch in the ozone layer is kind of silly, but really beautiful. I love Mary Louise Parker in this. I love her. She's so glassy. This is such a hard role to get right without it seeming completely off the wall. I think she's really well measured in this role. I like that scene, and I like the final scene at the fountain where Pryor like breaks the fourth wall and talks to you, and he's talking like, it is now 1993. I have been living with AIDS for this many years.
Yeah.
It's my birthday. I'm here having lunch with my friends by this fountain of this angel. Lewis is going to tell you about the angel. And then Lewis steps out and he talks to you not in the same manner in which Pryor is talking to you. Pryor's talking to you like he knows you're the audience. Lewis and Belize and Hannah are talking to you like you're just an acquaintance of Pryor's that happened to stop by that you're conversing with. It's real subtle, precise stuff. I love how they handle that final scene. I feel similarly about Angels in America the way I feel about Watchmen, and that they're both these stories that have a lot to say about political and social issues. And it's not so much that I connect with that, what the narrative is saying, as much as I connect with how the narrative says things. I love this story structurally. I love how it arranges its narrative, how it portrays things. That's what I love. I find it so artistically touching, I think, as opposed to more spiritually or emotionally touching.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I say we get into review show bingo.
Bingo! We got stuff we can cross off this week.
Bingo cards, yeah. Let me see if I can do the thing on our whatchamacallit here. Let's go into, come on, computer, you can do it. Into bingo.
Say it with me.
B-I-N-G.
Oh.
Did it work? Not really. Not exactly.
No.
Okay, I'm going to move us over to the bingo thing. There we go.
I don't know if you also have Ghost, but I have Ghost.
I sure
Finally,
do.
It took us almost half the year to get to any Ghosts.
Ghost. You got that one, and I got that one. Man. Still no bingo for me on that one. I guess
me either.
I have one, but that didn't get you any new bingos either. Let's see. No mysterious scars. No time to eat breakfast. No needle drop
of the time period.
Yeah. Did we get like a tall bag of groceries? You have that one.
I think there was a paper bag of groceries, but I put that on there exclusively for the baguette or celery stalk sticking out at the top.
Yeah.
It has to be a tall grocery in the paper bag, and I don't think we got that.
Okay. Well, I think that's kind of about it then for our bingo update.
Yeah. Finally Ghost.
There you go. Let me save that, and I can get us back to main screen. There we go. Cool. Well, it is my turn. Well, but before we do pitches, I was about to say almost skipped recommendations here. Melissa, for people who enjoyed this, what else might they like?
I think I recommended this when we talked about The Leftovers late last year. That was one of the things that made me want to rewatch it, because I realized I had such a hard time like remembering what the narrative was. I don't know how to describe Angels in America to people. You just got to watch it and feel it out. But the HBO Max backed me up on this. When I'm done watching Angels in America, it's like, do you want to watch The Leftovers next? Which is similarly, that's a story of people who have been through a biblical disaster. It's about people after this event called The Departure, where suddenly 2% of all human beings just vanished. And the story starts like 3 years after that with just the remaining people. Still, they have no idea what happened over the course of the show. You never get an explanation. It's just about people dealing with that sense of sudden, unexplained cosmic loss and the fear of how do we know if that's ever going to happen again? Where do these people go? Does it or is my family safe? Are they in a happier place? Are they in a worse place? Is it an act of judgment upon me that I wasn't taken? Am I bad because I survived and they didn't? Did they go somewhere? Did they die? Have they survived and they're just somewhere else? It's all these big spiritual and philosophical questions, but that show is also real chaotic. Like such a bananas show is in like not even the metaphysical ways that I was expecting. Just sort of an odd show. I really liked spending time with The Leftovers. And I thought
second that recommendation. That was gonna be one of mine too.
Mm-hmm. And I thought of 3 Andrew Garfield projects because I was thinking about how he's played this on Broadway, and then I thought about how he's played in other roles that you could relate back to this. He's in Tick, Tick, Boom, which is a Netflix musical movie directed by Lin-Manuel Miranda, based off the work of Jonathan Larson, who wrote Rent, which is also set in New York City in the 80s, about many things, including the AIDS crisis. And Tick, Tick, Boom is about Jonathan Larson trying to write a musical that eventually becomes Rent, and him struggling with losing friends and what that inspires him to do. And another real life person Andrew Garfield has played is he plays Jim Baker in The Eyes of Tammy Faye, which is about Jim and Tammy Faye Baker, the televangelists. And which was a narrative I didn't know anything about that story. I knew like the meme of her. I knew like lady with big makeup who like took money from people. And it's a very empathetic movie about Jim also being gay and like struggling with that and trying to hide that, and Tammy Faye being this very empathetic person to others in a way that other people were not, especially in the televangelist arena in the 1980s. There's a really touching scene where she interviews a man who has AIDS, and she's reaching out to him and offering her sympathies and like trying to encourage everybody else in her community. Like, this is your family. These are people just like you. These are your brothers and sisters, and you have to support them and not cast them out. And it's one of those movies that ends with the title cards of, and then this person went on to do this. And that man who she interviewed, he was based off a real man, and he's still alive today. And that was maybe my favorite moment in all of 2021 cinema, was that final title card telling me that man, based off a real man, still alive, sings with the Los Angeles Gay Men's Choir.
Still kicking.
Nothing has made me happier over the last year than learning that fact. And then I haven't watched Under the Banner of Heaven yet, but I've heard very good things about that. This new crime drama, I think on Hulu, where Andrew Garfield plays a Mormon detective who's called to investigate a murder in a Mormon community, something he thought would never happen with people he knows, people who he's under the same banner of heaven with. So, yeah. Rich career, Andrew Garfield. There's so many things you can watch him do besides being Spider-Man.
Indeed. So I wanted to second that recommendation on The Leftovers. I think that's a great one. It's really a show about how people cope with things here, which we got a lot of in Angels in America. I also want to recommend, in an odd way, I mentioned it, I want to recommend the comic Preacher. If you want maybe a little more of the absurd, the irreverent kind of adventure, but you liked that, if you liked the stuff where Pryor was telling the angels off and being a prophet, but then you just like the level of language that Al Pacino might have brought to the film. If you want to marry those two together, you get Preacher. It is foul-mouthed. It is not. It's an adventure of all kinds of irreverent stuff, but also one that has a really good heart to it, and
Oh,
not like a wow, we can really save the day, like that kind of thing, but just
the
like
real preacher was the friends we made along the way.
there's a lot of really, really touching character moments as you find out their history and what they've been through and what they're dealing with, and just the kind of back and forth that goes on in there. There is a TV adaptation
Mm-hmm.
of the show too. It lasted a few seasons. The show is pretty good too. I definitely recommend the comic more, but both are good. So there you go. That those would kind of be my
Nice.
recommendations there.
Good. And of course, I always recommend going to your local live theater. If you can see
Go see a
these
play.
live, particularly if you can see the one that's also got the second half that's got perestroika and millennium approaches, seek it out.
Indeed. But with that, now it is finally time for me to do my pitches.
Yes.
So Melissa, I have 3 movies for us to
Movies!
pick from. No real theme connecting them together, though you can find all of these on Netflix. So the first one is a movie called Hustle. This is a brand new movie starring Adam Sandler. It is a sports drama, but I'm putting this one on the list because of Uncut Gems. It's like there's your typical quote unquote Adam Sandler movie.
Right.
You might see Kevin James in there. You might see David Spade in there, right? Like
all his friends.
There's that level, and then there's like the Uncut Gems.
There's Prestige Sandler.
Yeah. I think this is meant to be another one of the Prestige Sandlers, right? It is
Prestige Sandler.
A dramatic role for him to be in. And that was kind of the interesting thing for me of Uncut Gems. Like, that was not a role that I typically associate with him. And so I think this is another one of those. Let's see. This is the film stars Sandler as an NBA scout who discovers a raw but talented player in Spain and tries to prepare him for the NBA draft. Queen Latifah, Ben Foster, and Robert Duvall also star, while LeBron James acts as producer of the movie. So interesting stuff here.
Good.
I thought that one would be interesting to see Adam Sandler in a more dramatic role and see how.
I haven't seen Queen Latifah in a while. Always welcome her.
Yeah, see how that one may or may not compare to Uncut Gems. Number 2 is a film here that I've seen on Twitter.
I love whenever you start a pitch and you already sound confused about the thing you went out to find.
I'm not confused about it. It's like inquisitive. Like, what is this thing really? I don't know. It's interesting. That's why I'm pitching it. I've seen this a number of times on social media. I've seen Paul Bay mention this on Twitter. This is
Paul Blart.
I've seen Paul Blart mention it on Twitter. No, this is the film Triple R or RRR. I'm not sure what it is. It's on Netflix. It's a Hindi movie. I'm not sure exactly here, but it is a whopping 3 hours and 5 minutes long. But I have heard great things about this film, that it has action, it is heartwarming, all sorts of stuff. Let's see. Netflix describes it as a fearless warrior on a perilous mission comes face to face with a steely cop serving British forces in this epic saga in pre-independent India. And then Wikipedia says it's a fictional story about 2 real-life Indian revolutionaries and their fight against the British Raj. Set in 1920, the plot explores the undocumented period in their lives when both the revolutionaries chose to go into oblivion before they began the fight for their country. So this one it seems interesting. I really don't know anything more about it besides that.
I've also heard about this film.
Let's see, made on a budget of 550 crore. I don't know how to pronounce that, which is about 72 million US dollars. RRR is the most expensive Indian film.
Wow.
Period. The film was initially scheduled for theatrical release in July 2020, which was deferred multiple times due to production delays and the pandemic. Released theatrically March 25th, 2022. And like I said, this is also on Netflix.
Nice to have it so promptly available to us.
Yeah. So that is pitch number 2. Pitch number 3, a movie I was interested in when I first saw the trailer. This is 21 Bridges. It's produced by the Russo brothers, among other people, starring Chadwick Boseman. It's a crime drama. Let's see, about the film stars Chadwick Boseman as an NYPD detective who shuts down the 21 river crossings of Manhattan to find 2 suspected cop killers. Blah, 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 blah. J.K. Simmons is also in this. Keith David, Taylor Kitsch, Sienna Miller, Stephen James.
Keith
reading off
David.
a whole bunch of stuff. I'm just great names here. But yeah. I remember seeing the trailer to this, I think, during Infinity War.
Yes, I remember this. I was also intrigued by this trailer. I liked the concept that this was taking place in a specific contained geographical area.
Yeah. And you know me, I like a good crime story. So I was like, crime story by the Russo brothers, kind of. It was just produced by them, so they didn't really make it. But still, I was just like, oh, okay. And Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace.
We gotta celebrate what we can.
Absolutely. So that's pitch number 3. Pitch number 1 was Hustle, starring Adam Sandler. Pitch number 2 is RRR. And pitch number 3, 21 Bridges.
You might have gotten me with 21 Bridges on another day, but it has to be RRR. I have also heard about this movie. I listened to a podcast called Unspooled that is about cinema of various kinds. It's a podcast I really admire, and they're covering it this week. So I was already thinking of watching this.
And timing.
We have watched a TV show from India. We watched the Netflix family horror mystery Typewriter, which was a show I really enjoyed. And I've been wanting to go back to India. It's a country with such a thriving cinema culture. I thought we should watch a movie from there and not only a television show.
Yes,
this is perfect.
Absolutely. In the back of my mind, that's also been one of the things that I want to bring more to the review show at some point. It's like, let's watch some Bollywood.
Yes.
Yeah. That'd be awesome.
I also like the challenge of just finding the most expensive movie from so many countries.
Yeah.
Right. Bring this back as a series of pitches.
Good stuff. Well, yeah, that is what we will do this next week then. RRR or triple R. Again, I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Yeah, I don't know what the title refers to. Maybe it's an onomatopoeia. We're supposed to growl. I don't know. We'll learn.
Is there a third movie with just 3 letters as the name? Because there's RRR, there's the Vin so maybe triple X. If there was one more, that would have been an amazing pitch for the review show. Like, here's JJJ, and
There's
RRR and XXX.
There's probably a like low budget snake themed horror movie called
like SSS. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, that would be really funny. But yeah, that's what we will do this next week is RRR. Join us for that. Go watch it. It's on Netflix. I'm about to sneeze.
Ah!
Excuse me. And I think this will be an interesting one. I'm excited to check this out. Yeah, that is what we'll be up to this next week. So Melissa, where can the people find you on the internet? You
can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit. That's WILKYWIT. And listen to my other podcast, Saturday Morning Obscurities, show where me and my brother Jams talk about weird old kid shows you feel like only you remember. We just put out our first Pride Month episode this year about a cartoon I'd never heard of called Cyber 6, about this female android cyborg. I forget how much of her is biological, who like escapes from a science experiment facility and lives an everyday life as a male high school teacher. It's a character with these really interesting dual identities who solves crimes.
Never heard of it. Cool.
Mm-hmm. Check it out. I think it's on YouTube. This is where we watched it. Cyber 6 was very interesting.
There you go. You guys can find me at Kyle Springer on Twitter. And if you guys would like to stay up to date with all of the stuff that we do here at the Whatnauts, we are at the Whatnauts on Twitter. So please go like, share, and subscribe. That would help us out a ton. If you guys can spread the word, that would be great. But that said,
thank you.
We will see you all next week. Bye.
Bye. Hey.